Hi, welcome to WisBrewView Live, our September edition. Today we have Mark Garthwaite. He is the Executive Director for Wisconsin Brewers Guild here in Wisconsin. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate making the drive up from Madison. We're live in studio today. And first of all, I guess for people who may not know, what is the Wisconsin Brewers Guild, how long you've been around, all that kind of good
Sure.
stuff.
Well, Wisconsin Brewers Guild is a trade organization that advocates for and promotes small and independently owned craft breweries in Wisconsin. This is actually the 20th anniversary year of Wisconsin Brewers Guild. It was founded in 1997. Wow. We're probably, I believe we're the fourth longest tenured Brewers Guild craft Brewers Guild in the country. Wow. So it's an organization that advocates for the approximately 155 or so small breweries, all scattered all around the state of Wisconsin. Okay,
and recently I think that advocacy kind of comes in with that whole, like, you probably saw a lot with that three-tier system. We kind of had this little discussion. So what is it? So someone's not aware of this three-tier system, or why is this so important for the craft breweries?
Sure. So I think you're kind of referring to a little bit of a kerfuffle in the legislature regarding
that was the word I was looking for. Kerfuffle.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's a technical brewing term, I believe. But basically, that involved a proposal on regulating breweries, wineries, and distilleries in Wisconsin. But it's basically premised on you'll hear the term three-tier system, and contrary to what you might be led to believe, three-tier system is not something that is specific to just breweries or wineries or distilleries. There's basically a three-tier system for anything that you buy. Somebody makes a product, somebody delivers a product, and someone sells a product. And sometimes whoever makes the product also sells the product, it also delivers the product, and that's pretty normal. And that's always been the case in Wisconsin since the repeal of Prohibition, that breweries, in particular, I'll speak just for breweries were freely able to both distribute their own beer and also to sell their own beer at retail. And in many regards, that's still the case today. So there was a proposal that had been floated that really was kind of done behind the scenes without a lot of the industry or industry members who would be profoundly affected by it really knowing what was going on. So it wound up being a little bit confusing, and I think if there's a lesson to be learned from all this is let's bring legislative proposals out into the light of day where they have an opportunity to be scrutinized by the public and, more importantly, by those who would be affected by it.
Right, because I mean, in this case, then, in essence, if you have a tap room, which I think is important to the craft breweries, because sure. A lot of them, this is where somewhat of a testing ground. It's not just necessarily where they're putting out I mean, they usually have out their most popular beers, but they're also usually trying smaller sure. beers, getting feedback. It's a good way for them to get feedback with a small batch of beer and see, is this something that maybe a larger sure. that's part of the taproom experience.
Right.
And in this situation, they would have to then sell it to a distributor and
well,
get it back or not.
Again,
I mean,
here's where a lot of confusion came into play. So while it may not have actually specifically said they're going to shut down your tap rooms or put strict barriers on your tap rooms, it did lay the groundwork toward going in that direction. And there's been kind of well over 2 decades of this habit of using the budget as a vehicle for making profound changes to how the beverage alcohol industry is regulated. And we understand that regulations are important. They're intended to protect the public interest. They're not intended to be protectionist. And that's where our objections lie, is someone has a vested interest in hiding these proposals from the public. That naturally will raise concerns by those who are regulated.
All right. So that's enough for the. Let's talk some.
Yeah,
beer.
that's not the fun part.
That's not the fun part. That's
right.
I'm hoping that's a small part of what you get to do. I'm hoping there's more. You do some other bigger things. A few times a year, you even have. I mean, there's all kinds of beer festivals, but you actually, as Brewers Guild, do a few of those a year. What are some of those? Yeah, the beer festivals that you guys do.
Right now, the two primary festivals that we do are the Wisconsin Beer Lovers Festival, that's in Glendale, usually Father's Day weekend. That is all Wisconsin breweries. It's kind of our signature event where every brewery is paired with a restaurant, or some breweries or brew pubs that also have their own restaurant will bring little food bites. So it's a wonderful beer and food pairing event. That's kind of what we've tried to do is reinforce the notion that beer is food and beer is meant to be enjoyed with food. So our other event is the Dells Rare Barrel Affair that's in the spring in Wisconsin Dells, and that's a little bit more focused to rare and barrel-aged beers. There are some of the trusted brand beer styles that for novice beer tasters, but that's kind of focused on more esoteric beer styles, very rare, very experimental styles, things that the brewers really like to make.
And that was one, a couple years ago I got to it. I couldn't make it it landed on a weekend.
Sure.
I couldn't make it down, but that's one that I put on my calendar. Hope that my calendar's clear, because that was fantastic. It's like I went down there. Senator Waters had pulled out some of their they had some pretty rare Milwaukee Brewing. They had done a on their Louis Demise with barrel aged in gin barrels, and it was just absolutely fantastic beer. So I mean, and just all around, I'm like, oh, I think Lakefront had their Black Friday, which is a big time. I mean, so there were some really great beers to be had. That was a fantastic.
A lot of the special release beers will mysteriously show up at the Dells Rare Barrel Fair. So that's I think we've got April 21st set for that date. Right. But this past year we found an ideal venue for that event, which is just a magical place. So I highly encourage you to join us again.
And beer festivals are a great way too. If you don't know a lot about beer, or you're not sure, you go into and I've tried to do this with our Pick Six, is at least focus it down a little bit, because if you go into if you're going to a retail place or some of these or a tavern that's got extensive lists, you're like, well, where do I even begin?
Right.
And I think a lot of times these beer fests are a good way to really just try stuff. You can take a sip, dump it out. No one's going to yell at you if it's something you don't like, and it's a good way to know, okay, I like that, I don't like this, and then
don't dump it out in front of the brewer.
Right.
Step aside. No, it's that's the way you should experience a beer festival. You're not there to. It's a tasting event. That's really the way you have to look at it. It's a tasting experience. Try things that you wouldn't ordinarily reach for when you go to the retailer, or when you're in a bar or tavern. You know most bars and taverns now are very willing to give you small samples of things so you can try before you buy. But the beer festival is a unique opportunity to try things that maybe the brewer is not quite sure that how the public will respond to it. Yep. So they're looking for your feedback too. So your impressions of their beer are very important to the brewer at a beer festival like that. They don't often get that one-on-one interaction with their customers.
So you get to interact with a lot of different breweries here. You got a lot of different members. Are you seeing any sort of trends? Is there anything that's really sticking out to you, like either a beer style or just things that some of these brewers around the state are doing that seems to be like a lot of them are doing? Or?
Sure. Well, we talked before we went on camera here that I'm very fond of Oktoberfest. So we're right in the middle of Oktoberfest season. So I think I have probably 12 different Wisconsin Oktoberfests in my refrigerator at home. So that's you're in the heart of the season for a beer style that Wisconsin brewers do very, very well. I would say Bock beers are the other beer style that are still very well regarded by those who appreciate those beer styles as well made in Wisconsin. As far as trends go, we've seen the New England IPA kind of catch the whole country by storm, and that seems to be the case here. Plenty of the sour beers are still very popular. It's always I'm still surprised that the consumer has embraced the sour beer styles as aggressively as they have. But there are more breweries that probably would have been a little bit hesitant to explore those sour beer styles that are actively engaged in doing that. You'll see a lot of really nice Pilsners. It seems kind of strange that we've kind of come full circle, and that some of the smaller breweries are kicking out some really wonderful Pilsner beers that are all malt. Some feature Wisconsin hops, which is another exciting development. We see a few more Wisconsin hop varieties that are making their way into Wisconsin beers, but the small craft breweries doing Pilsners, I think, is an interesting and refreshing development.
I was wondering too, that was one I thought, I bet that's going to start happening. You're going to start seeing this, okay, we've done all the crazy stuff, now it's time to have some of these beers. Or if I'm really into it, but maybe my friend isn't into it, we go down to the brewery, this is a beer that is going to be widely appreciated.
Right.
That it's going to be like what was in the market, except it's going to be done better. It's going to have a little bit more.
I think it's a style of beer that is probably the most difficult to make and do it well. So it's very gratifying to me as a champion of Wisconsin breweries to see them embracing that challenge of, I'm going to take what is probably one of the most difficult beer styles to do, and I'm going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah, there's nowhere to hide.
There's nowhere to hide flaws.
It's not like an IPA with the hops or other things you put in, adjuncts or whatever. But yeah, if you want just a straight up Pilsner,
that's right.
That's interesting too. I think Spotted Cow is so popular.
Yeah.
And it's not technically a Pilsner, but it's kind of in that vein of, it's a style of beer too that you have to know what you do. You can judge a brewery by how well they do that style of beer.
No doubt about it. That's certainly, I think farmhouse ale is what they would refer to Spotted Cow as. But that's if you go to any bar and tavern in Wisconsin and you don't see Spotted Cow on, you have to ask yourself, why not? That's a beer that has very broad appeal, brings people into exploring new beers that maybe they wouldn't ordinarily take a chance on. They've done a masterful job with that beer.
And it's interesting too to see how some of the different breweries are approaching things, and kind of they're finding, some of them are really finding their way. Central Waters with their barrel aging, also is really establishing itself with the sours. Seeing Three Sheeps really get into the whole nitro scene.
Sure.
So you're really seeing some of these breweries really go deep into some of these special areas too.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised at the number of breweries that are doing very unusual ingredients, using very unusual ingredients in their beers, and that's a lot more prevalent. So the talent that goes into knowing how to meld those non-traditional beer ingredients into a beer that people will really embrace, I think, is a testament to the talent that we have here in Wisconsin.
Are we going to see more local places open up that maybe their thought really isn't necessarily distribution? Do you think you will see more of that, where maybe people are going to stop worrying so much about, or at least in their retail or canning or packaging?
Sure.
I should say, maybe they're going to open up, they're going to have their tap room, and then they're going to distribute maybe so the bars, taverns can have them on. Do you see that happening at all, going that way? And
a vast majority of the breweries in Wisconsin are actually very, very small. So, probably the top 10, if you go below that top 10 producing breweries, most, if not, they would all be less than 10,000 barrels a year.
Okay.
And when you say 1,000 barrels, it sounds like a lot, but the aggregate amount of beer that Wisconsin's craft breweries produced in 2016 was somewhere around 500,000 barrels, and the largest brewery in the state of Wisconsin cranks out 8 million barrels a year. So, right. So it would take all of our small breweries combined 16 years to produce what that one brewery in Milwaukee is able to kick out in 1 year. So we're all very small businesses, family owned in many cases, and very rooted in communities. And I think what I find most appealing about the local breweries that are starting up is they tend to take buildings, old industrial buildings, areas of cities that have been in dire need of development, the brewery becomes that anchor. And actually, I like that term when the Titletown district was being proposed, that they specifically named 3 anchors to that project, and one was a brewery,
Hinterland.
which is Hinterland
Yep.
now. And that's really what a lot of these small breweries are, is the anchor to development. So you'll see a brewery start up in an area that hasn't seen any development in a long time, and then you see a coffee shop come in, and then you see a small specialty restaurant come in, and then you see another tavern open up down the street that caters to people who have generally gravitate toward craft beer. That's a very good thing for local communities, and I would hope that we'll see more of that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too. Like you hear about like, oh, someone wants to put in a big new manufacturing plant, and they want to like plow under acres of land and stuff. And I was just thinking that too. I'm like, it's too bad they don't take the craft brewery approach where let's find something, let's revitalize it
Sure.
and bring it in. I think
Yeah, well,
it's such a common theme for a lot of these breweries.
Yeah, there's something unique about a brewery, about a local brewery, and that's very ingrained in Wisconsin's history and culture, is that we've always had a deep and abiding connection to local breweries, and it's very gratifying to see that come back into fruition.
Plus, there's always the fun of like you go in and like, is the brewer going to be here tonight?
Yeah.
Am I going to get to talk to the guy who's making the beer?
That's right.
That I'm
Well,
enjoying?
they're employing people in areas that desperately need jobs. And economic development. It's a win-win for everybody.
All right, you ready for our
I'm
pick
ready.
six of
yeah.
either or questions
either
here?
or.
All right, you're going to have to decide. All right, so I think I know the answer to this one, but Oktoberfest or pumpkin beer?
Oktoberfest.
Okay.
Hands down.
Hands down, all right.
No, it's interesting to see pumpkin beer trends, that it was wildly popular, and now that the window where the pumpkin beer makes its appearance has shrunk a little bit. But I'm an Oktoberfest fan.
All right, so your Oktoberfest beer
Yes.
before or after September 1st?
All year round.
Oh,
I'll tell you
would
what,
take
it
all
was
year?
whatever
Okay.
that day was where it was National IPA Day.
Yeah.
Was the first day where I grabbed Oktoberfest. So everybody
That's
else
like
was
August
celebrating
3rd or
IPA.
whatever, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's in August, and
Yeah.
I was already joyfully having Oktoberfest.
I've said that too. I'm like, if brewers would just make this year round, I would drink it year round. But
Yeah.
but part of it is there is the fun of like, oh, it's bad. Like you said, like you put a beer away for a little bit. I think that we were talking about this before. You put it away for a little bit and then you bring it back. There is something kind of fun when it comes back into the market.
Well, absolutely, yeah. So that is the kind of the appeal of the season. And I'll say I used to be sort of like, oh man, it's not even it's not Oktoberfest yet. It's August. What's going on? But I love the beer so much now. I'm not worried about that.
Okay. Barrel aged or coffee stout?
Barrel aged.
Barrel aged.
Barrel aged for sure. I distinctly remember when barrel aged beers really kind of jumped on the scene. It was I don't know what year it was, but it was Great Taste of the Midwest when there was this crazy dark beer that tasted like it came out of a whiskey barrel, and to see how far that's gone since then, it's there's an amazing array of barrel aged beers that have really knocked it out of the park. Like you said, Central Waters.
Yeah.
I mean,
they built a 3,000 square foot building just for barrels to sit in.
and it smells really good in that barrel warehouse.
It's fantastic. Yes. Yeah, I remember the first barrel aged beer I think I had was one of their barley wines, and I'm like, oh, this is what all the hype is about. And I was just like, ever since then, I've been just absolutely hooked on the whole.
But when we're talking about barrel aged too, I think one of the most appealing that I've recently become fond of are the lighter beer styles that have been aged in Chardonnay barrels, which I think is a really interesting interplay. And actually, there have been a few breweries that have incorporated some Chardonnay grapes into those beers, and I generally don't gravitate towards Chardonnay itself. If I'm having wine, I'm a red wine drinker, but that combination has been very intriguing.
Yeah, I don't know, a while back, Stillmank did an IPA in tequila barrels.
Sure.
And I'm not huge on IPAs. I'm not huge on tequila. Bad 21st birthday experience.
Right.
But the beer was wonderful. Something with that combination worked well. So I'm glad too to see. Or I'd mentioned when they did Louis' Demise or Louis' Resurrection in gin barrels too.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what that did to that beer.
Well, and I think now, so now we have.
Oh no, it wasn't Louis Resurrect. It was OG. I'm sorry.
OG,
So
yeah,
there,
yeah.
I'm correcting.
Yeah,
So if there's
yeah.
probably people commenting, or hopefully not, we'll
Right,
go
no.
back and let that all.
Well, those are wonderful
OG,
opportunities.
right.
So we've developed closer relationships with local distilleries and local wineries too. So to have the opportunity to even go even more local with local distillery, to have you know, I know I think it was Oso actually they had their Doppelbock that they sent to a local distillery that then made a whiskey out of that Doppelbock base, and then the barrel that they aged that whiskey in went back to the brewery where they aged the Doppelbock itself in. So there's no end to the creative opportunities.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know
with
Badger
barrel aging.
State's they got a whole room where
Sure.
they're doing all kinds of crazy things up there too, and yeah, it just seems like they're having some fun with it beyond just we're gonna put the stout in. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the stout in the whiskey barrels, but it's fun to see kind of some of these other wine or whatever it is. So, session or imperial on your IPA, if you had to pick one or the other.
Generally, I'm a session beer, but I'd go Imperial IPA actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the talent that goes into making a session IPA. That's also a pretty hard beer to make. But it's interesting to see a lot of newer hop varieties that have sort of made that session IPA a more appealing beer. You get some interesting tropical fruit flavors that work well in that type of beer. But
it's not just watered down. It's there's still some of that real good whatever if you like that with the IPA and that bite. I mean they found a way to get that in there, not knock you out with one or two beers.
I guess I'm kind of one of those old school weirdos that I like a malt presence in a beer, and what I appreciate about the Imperial IPA is there is a strong malt presence that to me is very gratifying.
That's true.
The session if I want a couple, but certainly the Imperial if I just want to have one.
Sit down and have one. All right. Can or bottle? Ooh, for beer.
Wow.
Yeah. See,
I don't know.
Get tougher. See, I started easy, and we're gonna.
Being outdoors is pretty handy, and to be able to take cans. Actually, so this is my opportunity to mention that the Wisconsin Brewers Guild every year in the spring we do a common thread collaboration beer that is released before Madison Craft Beer Week, and for our 20th year we decided, well, we're gonna package the common thread beer, and the choice this year, interestingly, was to put this big Baltic porter in cans, which seemed a little strange at first, but look for those common thread Baltic porters. They should be on shelves now.
Okay.
But it's got the little Wisconsin Brewers Guild logo on there.
Okay.
And that was about 20-some breweries came together and brewed it at Ale Asylum back in the spring, and that will be a beer that will age very, very well in a can.
All right.
So I'm going can, I guess.
Can. All right. Yeah, I tend to, if I'm given the choice, I usually pick the cans over the bottles just because I'm going to pour it in a glass anyway.
Right.
Usually.
That's true.
Like, except for the barrel aged stuff tend to sew up. It'd be interesting to see one that you could hold on to longer. Right there. All right. So here you go. Parboil or beer bath for your bratwurst.
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. Yeah, boy, I'm not a very good Wisconsinite. I just throw the brats directly on the grill. So I think the bath. The bath is going to have to be the winner.
All right, sounds good. Any particular beer do you gravitate towards?
No, like I said, I'm a heathen. I guess I just throw the brats right on the grill and then drink the beer.
And then there you go. Well, yeah, you can still drink the beer. I'm not saying you can't drink it.
Right. Well,
okay.
I can't wait.
All right. Well,
I like my beer cold.
All right. Anything else that we didn't cover today that's coming up that
that's support your local breweries. They do amazing things, and they enjoy having your feedback, so they know what retailers are looking for.
Yeah, right. And like I said, if you want to know how difficult it is to pick out beers or to look at them, do a pick six of beers. Last year I spent doing each month doing a pick six of beers around different themes, and it wasn't so hard to find beers as much as it was to cut it down to six. So we're putting the challenge out on you guys now. Oktoberfest starts officially in Germany. The official Oktoberfest starts this Saturday. So we took a lot of the beers that we've done over the last year. I mean, it was no problem to find 72 beers that
Sure.
did not repeat. I could have probably gone IPAs alone, a year's worth of them, and probably been all right. So if you go to our website, click on our story, there's a link. You can build your own six-pick. You pick your six, and then share it and tell your friends why yours is right or someone else's is wrong. Or
Good luck.
Or just have some fun. Good luck. And good luck just picking
Right.
six
Yes.
out of that group. So
Do lots of research first.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Responsibly.
Right.
Next month, we're going to be talking with Nick Calloway from Anapee Brewery. Hopefully, we'll be doing it from just where the Northeast Wisconsin Craft Beer Festival is going to take on place. In November, we're planning to stop in at Stillmake. He does a every year Black Friday. He's been getting this whole Black Friday release thing, so we're going to talk to him a little bit about what he's got coming up for that. So thanks for tuning in today, and hopefully we'll see you next month.
Cheers.